Hi, this is Coach Shawnee Lavender, and today I want to talk with you about the topic of entrusting your child into someone else's care. And specifically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I'm sharing about this topic. I'm going to tell you some of my own experience, my personal experience as a mom, letting others care for my daughter. And then the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share some specific tips that I recommend from my coaching perspective to you if you are facing this issue in your own lives, how to make a decision that works for you and your family. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you why we're talking about this. I'm going to share a bit of my story, and then I'm going to share suggestions about what you can do to make the right decision for your family. So first of all, the why. Why am I talking about this? First of all, I'll say that you're getting me on a Saturday morning. I don't normally do recordings on Saturday morning, so this is Saturday. This is chores clothes. I've been doing laundry and doing things around the house. So take that as you will, but that's part of my life, right? We all have those other parts of our lives. So you're seeing the real me. So this topic came up in my Facebook community, and a mom was saying that she was feeling a lot of anxiety around letting others care for her almost 2-year-old daughter. And so she was getting feedback and loving support from other members of my community, which I love. And I wanted to respond as well. So just to set the general stage, so she had had somebody else care for her child before. It was a trusted friend, and now that situation's not available. And she was expressing concern about letting somebody she doesn't know care for her daughter and feeling really anxious about that. And so was wanting some input around that. So you may have been in a similar situation, or maybe you will be, or maybe you'll be in a slightly different situation. But that is the context from which I'm speaking. That's what I'm going to be responding to. So let me tell you now a bit of my story. So my daughter is now 7, and she was cared for by my husband or me only all the time until she was 14 months old. So no grandparents. Now, when they come to visit, obviously they got to hold her and things like that. But in terms of like, oh, mama's going to go out for a little while. Well, if mama went out for a little while, either my daughter was with me or my husband was with her at home. So it was just the two of us doing the caretaking until she was 14 months old. And then my husband and I went on a 45-minute date and we had some good friends care for our daughter. And, the whole time, of course, we talked about our daughter and how hard that was for us to do. So just so you know, that's part of my personal experience. Then when my daughter was approximately 18 months old, my husband had a very demanding job and very long hour job running a political campaign. And what I found was that meant I was the full-time caretaker. Now, some of you, that is your situation already, and so you may have developed ways that you work with that. For me, that was a new experience at the time, and I found that there were some things that I was wanting and some things that I was really needing for myself that were hard to get without having some additional support that my husband wasn't able to provide at that time. So I said, okay, I think this is time to bring somebody else in. And like this person in my community mentioned, it brought up a lot of feelings for me. And it was like, oh my gosh, this, I really have very clear ideas about some of the things that are really important to me and our family, as far as the types of interactions we want people to have with our daughter, really treating her like a full person. I'm referring as, when she was that age, even at that age, even at younger than that, even from day one, not treating her as a baby, with goo-goo baby talk and things like that. Doesn't mean people couldn't be loving. Of course, we wanted that. And yet we had some real clear ways of being that were important to us. So it was a challenge for me. And like I said, I realized that there were some needs from my standpoint that were not getting met, and that was meaning that I was not then showing up in all that time with my daughter in the way that I wanted to be. So my unwillingness to have somebody else support me and provide some care for her was negatively impacting her and my relationship and our family dynamics. So that's sort of in a nutshell. But what we ended up doing was, and I'll share this in the tips, but we ended up finding a young lady who we fell in love with. And when she ended up leaving about 6 months after she started with us because she was going back to graduate school, I was heartbroken. I was like, no, there'll never be another person like Morn. And so it was like this, heart-wrenching. It was like she had become an integral part of our family. And so I really went from, oh, I don't want to turn my daughter over into the care of somebody else, to, wow, wasn't this an awesome experience for my daughter, for me, for our family, for this young woman, because of the way it was done and the way we did it. So, and what she brought to us and everything. So, what I can say from my personal experience is that I found, and this may or may not be your experience, but I found that in opening up space in a very conscious, intentional way, which I'll talk about with the tips, it was like we really expanded our family. And so it was this wonderful experience to have somebody else care for my daughter. My daughter loved this nanny and then the subsequent nannies that we had. And I loved her, and, I learned things from her. She learned things from me, so it was this really wonderful symbiotic relationship. And so I offer that as my experience going from somebody who was very reluctant to turn my daughter over into the care of somebody else, to somebody who really sees the enormous benefits that can happen when we do allow other people into our children's lives in a more intimate way, in those, caregiving ways with young children. So that's a little bit of my story. And like I said, I'll talk about what we did that I think really works when I get to the tips, which I'm going to do in just a minute. So now what I want to do is to share some tips in terms of if you are deciding, or you're considering this, or you are in the process of talking with caregivers now, or you want to have some resources to call on when you get to that point. You can bookmark this video, save this video, so that you can think through these ideas. So let me just take you through them one at a time, and if you have questions or comments, you can post them and I'll respond. So the first thing I think is essential is that we, as the parent or parents, depending on the configuration of your family, what your family looks like, that we are really clear on what does it mean to us to have a caregiver. What are we looking for? What is most important to us? What are our deep values that we say, what are we going for? If I'm not going to be here, or my partner's not going to be here, what is it? Who is it that I'm wanting to turn my child over to the care of? And that's a really important piece, because, if you just think, oh, I'm letting somebody babysit, well, maybe you had a negative experience when you were a child being babysat, or things like that. So you don't want to just go, oh, well, I just have to do it. Well, you might need to. That might be what's up for your family. It's really important. And yet that doesn't mean you just have to turn them over to anyone. So get really clear, write the things down, really be specific. What is it you're wanting? It might be really important to you that you have somebody who is very comfortable with a certain method of parenting, or, a certain way of doing first aid. Maybe your child has a lot of medical issues. So you want to be able to say, okay, what I know is I really want to have somebody who's comfortable with the child who is not maybe the typical child that they've dealt with, with any other child care experience. So whatever it is, there's no rights or wrongs. It's like, what's important to you? What matters? And what we did in our family specifically is we have a couple things. One, we wrote commitments to our daughter when she was 2 months old. And those commitments are about how we intend to show up in her life as her parents. And so they're real explicit about, the ways we're going to treat her, the ways we are going to interact with her. From those parenting commitments that guide my husband and I, we wrote out sort of something for caregivers and really any friends and family who are going to spend any amount of time with our daughter, because not everybody holds the same views as we do. And so we wanted to be really clear with people, hey, here are some things that might be different for you. They might not, but we want you to know these are really important things. So for instance, we have in our guidelines for our caregivers, we have the clarification about, physical touch, that you get to ask our daughter if that's okay. So now when she was 18 months old, maybe you didn't always, you weren't always able to get the clearest communication, but it wasn't like, oh, just pick up our daughter and do whatever with her. It's like, no, you can ask her, hey, can I pick you up? Can I carry you outside, or can I carry you back inside? That was important to us. So we wrote those things down. So that's what I suggest first. Get really clear about what you're wanting and have this creative vision for yourself. Now, you may not get everything in a given person, and yet you still want to be really clear. What's your ideal? Who would your ideal person be? Is it a person who loves to sing? Is it a person who loves nature? Really be clear in that. Whatever it is fine. So get clear on what you want and what's really important for your family. The second step is to really determine from that list that you've created, what are the non-negotiable things? In other words, what are the things that absolutely have to be in place? So just as an example, let's say you want to make sure that person does not smoke at all. It doesn't matter if it's, they were driving to come be with your child, or it was early this morning, whatever. If that's important to you, it was to our family, but then that's a non-negotiable for you. So it's like, if the person smokes, then no, sorry, you could have all the other qualities, but that's a thing that's absolutely a must for our family. Whatever it is, again, doesn't matter. It's what matters to your family, what's appropriate for you. So from your list of what you're going for, then get really clear on which of these are non-negotiable. And for those, I would say generally, you probably have anywhere between 1 and 5 things that are non-negotiable. Because if you're getting more and more that, absolutely are non-negotiable, it's just going to be harder to find somebody. That doesn't mean you can't have real clarity and say, boy, we really, really want these things. Simply be discerning for yourselves of, are there some of these that, oh, we absolutely have to have, and others that are like, that's not absolutely, and yet it's still really high up on our list. So that was step 2. Step 3, and this is sort of getting, I'm going to leave out some of the mini steps, like, talking to friends, getting recommendations, going on sites, websites, looking for caregivers, asking for references, talking to references. So you're going to do that anyway. Once you find a person that you are like, hey, this feels like a good match, they have the non-negotiable qualities and characteristics that we want, and the other things that looks really good, you want to be really clear with the person. You want to say, hey, here's our list of things. I want you to read this over, and I'd like you to see if you have any questions. So it's not something, I believe, that you want to be casual about. You don't just want to say, oh yeah, you seem like you'll be fine, let's have fun. It's like, yeah, show them the list. This is a job that they are doing, so you want to know that they know what's expected of them. So give them that list, see if they have questions, talk with them, like, be clear. So even if you think things are clear, you might want to ask them, do you have questions about this? Or can you tell me what this means to you? So make sure you feel good. It's like, yeah, okay, they got it. And I feel confident that they are on board with these things. So that's the third thing you want to do. I probably should number these on my sheet, otherwise I'll lose track because I just put little dots by them. Um, the fourth thing that I suggest is have some trial periods with you at home. Now, this is obviously I'm talking about if you're having an in-home caregiver. If you're going to a facility, then you can do that differently. But I personally think it's really important because it's mainly for you. Because really, who has the issue? It's us, right? The parents, the moms, the dads were saying, I don't know about this. So I think one of the most important things that we can do when we are entrusting our children into somebody else's care is that we can be confident. We can be comfortable. We can be, sure and trusting that this is a good fit. And that's super important because A, you're living in your body, so you don't want to be freaked out all the time, right? But the other thing about it is our child is going to draw from us our thoughts and feelings about the situation. So if we are really anxious and thinking, oh no, I'm not sure this is the right fit, then, and I'm not judging that because I've been there, but if that's the energy that we're bringing into, here's my baby, our child is not going to like that because that's their nervous system is going to be upset because they picked that up from us. So we really want them to be able to have our confidence so that they'll be confident. So that trial period, part of what that does is it lets you be, in earshot, so you can hear the nanny or the sitter with your child for a little bit and see how they're interacting. And so you're like, oh yeah, I'm hearing that. Or you hear something that you're like, I want to give a little feedback on that now or later. It doesn't matter, but it's like you're getting some data to know, okay, am I confirming that this feels like a fit? What's going on? How am I feeling about this? And that you're around for the first few times. So I did that with our first nanny and every subsequent nanny. I was always around for the absolute first hour that they were together. This is when my daughter was, preschool age. So I was around that first hour. I wasn't in the room necessarily because I wanted my daughter to have the time with the nanny, but I was within earshot. I would pass by in other rooms so I could, watch how they were interacting and listen, things like that. I wasn't spying. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be here. And then I would be around, and I didn't leave the house with another caregiver with my daughter for the first one for a few times because it was like, I want to be, I want to be around. This is serving me. I would do things to read. I would relax, do other things. So I was getting my needs met in that time. And yet I wanted to make sure that when I left the house and left them alone, that I felt really comfortable. So that's the thing that trial period does for you. So if it's an offsite setting, same kind of thing. I would say, look, I want to be around. Now, I get that you don't want to be in the same room because, again, that's confusing for children and is like, wait a minute, who am I with? But yeah, stay on premises, sit outside on a bench so you can periodically peek in or, so that you can hear when they're on the outside play area, that you can hear the interactions. That's all totally acceptable because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to get to that really confident place of like, yes, this is a great fit. So that's the fourth thing, that trial period. The fifth thing, and this is one of the most important, and this is something I really recommend for all of us in all kinds of parenting situations, but is really get into your own head because what happens usually is that, yes, there are legitimate concerns we have. Absolutely. Like, hey, is this person, are they skilled at caring for my child when my child's emotionally upset? Are they, good at doing some play activities with my child and helping my child, be engaged and enjoy their time together? Those type of things are important. However, often what really is the barrier for any kind of parenting situation is what's going on up in our mind. So for me, for instance, just to go back to my own story a little bit. So I had some old stuff about from my own childhood because my both my parents worked, and so and I'm adopted, and so basically from the time I came home from when they adopted me at birth, my mom was able to be with me for some time, but then she needed to go back to teaching. That was my parents' income. They both needed to work. And so I had some of my own stuff about, oh, somebody else is caring for me and I don't want to be replaced. And so that was my own stuff, from my own childhood. And so it's like, wait, that's not my daughter's situation. That's not what's up for her. But if we aren't mindful of what's going on up in our heads, then it's like, oh, I feel anxious about this. I'm really concerned. It's like, well, are those real concerns or are those based on some things from our past, some things that may be very unlikely to come true? Really get in there and go, what are my concerns and what are my issues about this? Because like I said, you want to get to a place, if you're turning your child over into the care of somebody else, you want to get to a place where you're feeling very confident and assured that this is a good fit, this is a good choice. You want that for your own benefit and for your child's. So do the work to be able to deal with fears and things you have so that you can really go, this is that, this is not, these fears, these concerns are really not about this situation. Um, that's a really important piece to do. So that was number 5. Number 6 and the final one is develop trust in your caregiver. So this is really essential because of what I've been talking about. Our children don't have that trust, especially if they're young. They don't know who this person is. They didn't do the vetting, they didn't read the resumes. It's like they don't have that. So you want to develop a deep well of trust in this person, so that, again, you feel comfortable, but then you want to demonstrate that and show that, hey, this is somebody, this is a great person. You're going to have a great time with them. They're going to take excellent care of you. They're going to be a great substitute for me in this moment. You want to exude that in your energy and your attitude and your words and your actions, because your child needs to borrow that trust from you until they have had enough time with that caregiver to build up their own relationship. And then they'll have their own trust. So with my daughter, for instance, after a few times with our first nanny, Amorn, those first few times I was always like, hey, I'm here and I'm so excited to see you and thank you. So I'm exuding a lot of positivity, a lot of confidence, excitement that, oh, you two get to be together. It's going to be great. And I would do that on the tail end, when I would come back into the situation. I would reference, hey, what did y'all do? What was fun? And so even though my daughter was only 18 months, she was seeing that I knew it was going to be great. I knew you two would do wonderfully. So it's like she was seeing that, hey, mom knows it's cool. We're good. So she then, after a few times of that, then when she would see Amor, and she'd be like, yay, I get to be with Amor, and this is going to be a good time. We're going to have fun. She's not missing me. Sure, she misses me, but she's not, because she knows now she has a relationship built with this caregiver. And so she feels confident and she doesn't need my trust anymore. Doesn't mean I, give up showing my confidence and things like that. It's just she doesn't literally need to borrow it from me to feel confident in that relationship. So, but all children need that at first, because they're like, I don't know who this person is. What are you doing, Mom? What are you doing, Dad? So they want to borrow that trust from you. So you need to build it up first. So you can do that in any number of ways. You can do, some small talk with the person. You can ask the person over for dinner one night, and pay them for it if you need to. But get to know them a little bit, or, spend a little bit of time talking with them before, you turn your child over. Like maybe your spouse is there, or maybe your child's, they're comfortably playing. So you and the caregiver talk, just talk to them as a person. get to know who they are, and so that you know, find out some of your similarities, some of the things that, you know, some shared experiences or shared interests, so that you will have the sense of like, yeah, this is a great person. I'm so excited. So your child sees that and they can borrow that confidence until, again, they've built it up on their own. So let me run through those real quick, just list them out. Those are the 6 steps I suggest anytime when you're turning your child over into the care of another person. Not all of them do you need to do over and over. Some you're going to do every time you have a new caregiver. Some you're going to do just once or just every now and again. So like now that my daughter's 7, we don't have the exact same expectations that we did when she was 18 months old, because my daughter's different, you know, and there's different things that we want a caregiver to do now than we did before. So those things you might have to do more than once, but some of them you're going to do just once. Some you're going to do every time there's a new caregiver coming into your lives. So when you are ready or thinking of entrusting your child into the care of another person, the 6 steps that I recommend you do are: number 1, know your values, know what's important to you about the caregiving relationship and what you're wanting from this care provider. Number 2, you want to determine which of those values and important wants that you've written out really clearly, you want to determine which ones are non-negotiable, which ones you absolutely have to have in place, otherwise, sorry, no deal. Number 3, when you have this person in front of you, you want to clearly communicate, here's what we're wanting from you. Here are the things that are non-negotiable. You want to make sure you have understanding and acceptance from that person that they're on board with this. Number 4, you want to have a trial period or trial periods, depending, being nearby. So you're not right there in the action necessarily. Although with my daughter, you know, when she's 18 months, yeah, for the first 20 minutes, I was there sitting on the floor, you know, as they played together. And then I slowly, you know, okay, I'm going to back out of the room and now I'll be around for the next hour, things like that. But by and large, you want to have 1 or more trial periods so you can be present, observing, listening, and getting a sense of how are they doing together. You're doing that for 2 reasons: so that your confidence is either affirmed, or if there's something that you know, hey, want to talk to you about something, that you are knowing where you stand with this person. And the second part of that is that trial period also allows you to give that person some feedback and some input about, yeah, that was so awesome, or wow, can you teach me how you did that thing? You know, whatever it is. But you want to be able to have some of that back and forth early on, because yeah, it takes time for y'all to get into your groove and figure out what really works for the 3 of you or the 4 of you. The 5th thing you want to do, super important, it's number 5, but that doesn't mean it's 5th in importance, it's just where it came in my list, is you want to get into your own head and work to dispel any fears or concerns that you have. And you want to do that, A, so that you have peace of mind, B, so that you're not projecting your own stuff onto your child's situation, and C, you want to do that because one of the most essential factors for success in turning our children over into the care of other people is that we, as the child's primary caregiver, that we feel really confident. So that's what that step is mainly geared towards. And finally, number 6, you want to develop trust and demonstrate that trust, show it, so that your child, especially in the early phases of their relationship with a caregiver, so that they can feel confident and know, hey, my parent or my parents see this person as a good person. And so I can, even though I don't know this person yet, or I don't know them really well, I can trust, because my parent says, hey, I can trust this person, that I can borrow that trust for a little while till this caregiver and I have developed our own relationship. And I know from my own direct experience that I can trust him or her. So those are the 6 steps that I recommend to anybody when you're turning your child over into the care of someone else. I will also say, sort of on a related piece, I also have a video about what you can do if your child has some separation anxiety. I don't like that term, but it's commonly used, so you know what that means. So I've got a video on my YouTube channel about that can be really helpful if your child is feeling some emotions around leaving you. Feel free to look that up as well. Let me pause. I hope these 6 ideas have been useful or will be useful to you when you face this decision for yourselves. I hope that knowing a bit of my story gives you sort of where I've been. So I've been in that place of, oh, I don't know, I'm not ready. I love my daughter. I don't want somebody else to care for her. Oh, can they do it as well as me? Yes, they can. They do it differently, but some ways better, some ways, not the way that I do it. So it's still good. But that you got a little bit of my story as well. And again, the why that I wanted to offer this was that at some point, most of us are going to get to a place where we are turning our children over into somebody else's care. And even if it's a family member or a friend, I encourage you to go through these same steps. So, even if you're like, well, I don't feel uncomfortable, it's like, doesn't matter. You can still do these steps and get more clarity on what's really important for you in a caregiving situation. What are you going for? And that is helpful to you. It's helpful to the caregiver. So again, don't hesitate to use these 6 tips if you're already feeling confident, or if you've already had caregivers, feel free to start using them. It's like, oh, wait a minute, we never really got clear on, now that our child is 10, what do we expect differently from a caregiver? You can use these 6 steps right now. So again, I hope that's helpful. As always, if you have questions or comments, I'm glad to engage in productive conversations. So feel free to leave those either on Facebook or on YouTube, depending on where you're viewing this video. If you want to interact with me and other conscious parents more, I invite you to join my Facebook community, the Conscious Moms Circle. And otherwise, you can find me on Facebook in the Conscious Moms Circle, also at Shawnee Lavender Coaching on Facebook, or on my YouTube channel, which is in YouTube is also Shawnee Lavender Coaching. And you can find me on my website, ShawneeLavender.com. I am Shawnee Lavender. I'm the Conscious Moms Coach, and I wish you a wonderful day of caring for your own children or entrusting them to someone else's care, or some of both. Wherever you are in this world, thank you for being with me today, and I wish you well. Bye now.